The first thing we have to understand if we're going to start using breathing to calm ourselves down is understand how the lungs work. So have y'all ever seen one of these before? This is a lung model. Tim made this for us last night. Our lungs are a vacuum, not a balloon, although this is a balloon. But I'm going to show you the way it works as a vacuum. Does that make sense when I even say that? So what we have is our diaphragm. Okay?
Which is the orange.
This here is going to be the diaphragm. And that yellow deal up there is going to be the lungs. Okay? So I'll show you what I'm going to talk about first. I'm going to show you what this is. I'll let Tim hold it. So what we can do when we breathe is we can suck air in. And that's treating my air like a balloon. I'm like sucking air into my lungs.
So if my chest comes out when I breathe, what that's doing is pulling this diaphragm up into my chest cavity.
Okay, when my chest
and
comes out.
watch what happens when that happens. What happens to your lungs when I push that diaphragm out?
Pushes all the air out.
Pushes all the air out.
Okay.
If my belly comes out when I breathe, that pushes this diaphragm down and it sucks air into that balloon.
So air flows into my lungs.
Air flows into my lungs. I don't push air into my lungs. My diaphragm pulls air into my lungs. And this is exactly the way our lungs work. What happens when you get stressed out and get anxious? What happens to your breathing?
It speeds up.
And it moves up.
It gets shallow.
That shallow comes from my chest expanding when I breathe instead of my stomach.
Okay. So if you're, because y'all probably heard this term, belly breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, if you've been in choir or something like that. In the exercising world, like if you run marathons or I don't run marathons. If you run anything, they'll talk about belly breathing. I used to do sports years ago, right? So when I breathe in, my belly ought to go out. Not because air is actually coming into my belly. I do tell kids that sometimes. Let that air come into your belly. But as you breathe out and your tummy comes out, that diaphragm that's kind of here, it goes down. It creates this open space so that air just flows into your lungs. Okay? So one of the most important things to do when you first start getting stressed first is to re-engage your belly. Because with that shallow breathing, that quick breathing, what's happening is we start pulling air in to our lungs here in our chest. And what we're doing is treating our lungs like they're a balloon instead of like they're a vacuum. So the very first thing that you do when you feel yourself start to get stressed out is re-engage your belly. I will literally put my hands. I want you all to practice this with me for just a second. Put one hand here on your chest and then put one on your belly. And just kind of lean back and be comfortable. And I want you all to try first breathing where your hand's what comes up. So you're going to kind of suck air in, okay? Breathe where your chest is what's going to move. Y'all feel that a little bit? Now I want y'all to try to feel the difference. So this time when you breathe in, you can put both hands there if you want. Make sure that your belly, when you breathe in, your belly comes out. Okay? So our stomach gets real tight, right? When we get stressed out, our core gets tight, our stomach gets really tight, and it affects the movement here. And so we start doing this shallow stuff. So when you're doing shallow breathing, you don't get enough oxygen into your body. And so then I was stressed, and now I'm just getting more stressed. And it's just this, it becomes kind of this endless cycle, right?
So when my brain gets deprived of oxygen, which is exactly what happens when I do the shallow chest breathing, what part of my brain do you think that puts me in? If my brain is not getting enough oxygen, it pushes me down into the survival parts of my brain. Because when I'm not getting enough air, then I got to figure out how to survive.